How are you?
Not bad. This what I got in the mail today?
Yes.
Yeah, have a look at it.
All right. Sounds good.
How are you doing?
Good. Good. Yeah, I don't. Okay. I know it all came in at the last minute.
Yeah. I read it just, half an hour ago.
Hey, Bob, is that you at the bottom?
That's the rebuttal, right? Rebuttal to the definition thing?
Yeah. And then there's a traffic study in there too, I think. Traffic study from DPC, I think.
I don't know that I saw that. Is that in here?
It should.
Wasn't it? I went over and took a look at the road again today.
Yeah.
Michael's
Yep.
and the dirt road out.
Yep.
I didn't think they were that skinny. I saw some correspondence that would indicate some people felt it was super skinny. And, I've been on that road maybe a half a dozen times in my life.
I drive that road quite often.
Yeah.
You got to be careful because there is a lot of foot traffic on it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Especially when I was on.
Especially in the summertime.
Yeah, I'll bet. Oh, sure. Absolutely foot traffic. I was thinking more of, there was talk of vehicular.
Yeah.
Coming up on each other from different opposing ways,
Yeah, and they bring that up in the traffic study. we got here too.
I'm gonna.
You guys can't talk about
beg you. I'm gonna beg you. Speaker.
Yeah. Yes, I will.
I swear to God, I thought I was hard of hearing.
vaccine requirement for indoor dining that will take effect January 3rd.
I think we might be able to have people hear us here. Yeah, you just want to tell people we'll be ready in a few minutes.
Sure. About how much time we need?
A couple minutes, trying to figure out what it is.
Hello, everybody. Just to let you know, we're just trying to figure out a couple of technical difficulties and we'll be ready to go in a couple of minutes. Last time, if you remember, people that were at Zoom were not seeing the screens that we were.
I'll just leave that like this and then
Okay, we can move over too if you want to sit here, if it's easier for you, whatever.
this will actually work out well,
Okay.
allegedly.
All right, well, welcome back, everybody. It's 6:34 on December 14th, 2021. This is a meeting of the Hinsdale Zoning Board of Appeals. This meeting is a continuance of the November 30th meeting to review and act on the Northgate Resort Ventures LLC special permit application. This meeting is being recorded by Zoom, so you will be recorded when you speak. Present are board members Bruce Alexander, Dan Thornton, Deon Douglas, and myself, Jeff Bach. Before we start back up, just like to note that Mr. Thornton here is an active board member, but when it comes time to vote, he is going to be excusing himself from voting. Before this matter got passed on to the zoning board, Dan made his thoughts on this clear to the public, and therefore in the best interest of the board, the town and town council have decided that he'll sit up here, but he will not have a vote in this matter in fairness to that. When we left off at 9:45 on November 30th, we were taking public comments and questions. We listened to like 2 hours of questions and comments. Tonight, we're going to continue hearing questions and comments, but tonight, first and foremost, the board is going to ask their questions. If the public wants to ask questions, it's going to be very limited. We, 1 to 2 minutes most for you guys. We heard a lot of information. Also, just to reassure you, all the information is still being posted to the website. That's available by going to the town website and clicking the Northgate link that Bob has set up. There are currently over 430 pages of information information on that, not including the application and the bid document. So there's actually over 700 pages of documentation, right? So it's all there for you to enjoy. It is being read as it comes in, so you don't need to get up and read it. We are being aware of it. And if it doesn't get brought up as a question, it's because we feel that we already know the answer. You know, the board has what it needs out of that. So thank you for those. And at this point, let's begin the questions. First, would you like to say anything, Brent, to get started? Or would you like to just get started, Attorney Scrimlow? Okay, great.
She should be able to do it. There's about 20 more people coming on. It's just they take a bit.
Really gotta hold it close. They're really good ones. They don't have feedback on. But some board members were having a hard time hearing them last time.
Hello again, members of the board. Once again, my name is Jeff Scrimlow. I'm for Northgate. I'm here today with Justin Rosenberg.
We can't hear anything.
You hear that?
No, we're on Zoom.
Sean, you're showing that you're muted up there. Sean. I think you should be unmuted. Yeah.
Okay, try that.
You try again.
That's better,
Okay.
much better.
Everybody miss my spiel?
Want to go again?
No, I don't.
Welcome, everyone. My name, once again, is Jeff Scrimlow. I'm the counsel for Northgate. And I'm here tonight with Brent White, who is engineer from White Engineering, as well as Chelsea Boserbrook, who's general counsel with Northgate, and also Dan Dumay, who is here for MDM Engineering. Bob Mashad cannot be here tonight, so he's here with them. At the last meeting, as you know, we had.
Hold on 1 second. You need to mute your computer so that people can hear you through the microphone.
Good.
You're still coming through.
We log out on the meeting, that's why I should be the last representative. If they want to log in.
Technology. So last time we were here, before we had a meeting, there was already a second one scheduled, and the purpose for that was because obviously this was it's a large hearing. It's going to carry over for some period of time, as well as there was some peer review information and items that we were hoping to get, which we have not quite got all of that yet. Brent White can discuss more fully that issue in terms of some more information that we need. So my point is that we can't proceed completely tonight without that information. But that being said, we would like to continue working forward on this matter, and so that we're not just wasting time here. We'd like to continue moving forward. We do hope to get a firm date by which those materials and the information will be provided, and then have a short hearing date to follow that, so that we have the opportunity to review those materials and we can make the most of the next meeting as well. So I did receive just as part of the record, I did receive a legal letter on Friday. This was a second opposition legal brief from New York City law firm. I did respond to that as well, and that should be filed with the town. This is probably the most brief definition, 3-word definition I've seen in my career. I think it's fully briefed. It is, I think the opposing party has about 150 pages worth of documents. Mine's probably about 20. So I would suggest to the board that the legal issue before you is something that can be decided on the papers. I would suggest that you do that with town council. I think it is fully briefed. I don't think continuing argument on it is going to do much more than create just more confusion, more of a Mad Hatter's table than anything. So I think if you just can go through that with town council, I think you will come to the conclusion that you come to, which is well within the purview of the board. Okay. That being said, I do want to turn it over to Brent White, and who is prepared to continue on with his presentation regarding kind of the engineering and technical issues of this proceeding. Thank you.
Thank you. And we did get that. It just was received by the board today, so we'll review it, obviously.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, good evening, everybody. Good evening, board members and those at home. Thank you for your time to be here.
You're close.
Closer.
Yeah.
I also submitted a memorandum today, and really the intention of that was to merely put onto paper items that I had stated for the record during our November 30th public hearing. I also just wanted to reiterate that, in our opinion, the DPC review that was conducted with respect to the water, wastewater, and stormwater, there are certain technical elements that I have every confidence that we would have the ability to work with Mr. Prickett and his firm to understand what their concerns are as compared to what Superintendent Hall had initially identified that he was comfortable with respect to water connections, some of the elements of the water and sewer connection overall here. So in our view, we feel very confidently that we could respond to the rest of those comments. Admittedly, from our perspective, having a better understanding of the budget and timeline with respect to the suggested downstream camera investigation of Longview Avenue and the sewer system downstream of that, and the budget for what that would be to implement those repairs, in our view, as well as understanding what the proposed rate structure for a connection would be, other than the flat rate of $800, which is our understanding of the connection fee to be. Those, in our view, are the biggest outstanding items related to that technical review. And Attorney Scrimmel and I are here to answer any questions you have tonight. Thanks.
Thank you, Brent. So I'm going to start off. I do have several questions for you. And one of them is in regards to, and I know we just received today a response from DPC about our request for their review of your traffic study. And we just got it as we walked in. So obviously the board and your firm as well needs time to look at that. So the meeting will be continued, but just based on your own traffic study, could you clear up the amount of traffic that is to be expected on a given day? We hear 1,000 trips per day, and then other people like shake their head when that is said. But according to like tables 5 and 6 of your report, it seems to me that the baseline in table 1 was on a Friday, was like 315 trips per day. And then this is without the camp. And then there was 480 trips on a Saturday. And then your figure, by your own figures, and if I'm not reading them wrong, it shows that it's like 1,100 trips proposed on a Saturday.
So for that question, I'm actually going to defer to Dan DeMay, who's joining us via Zoom. Dan, did you get that question? Dan, you need to unmute yourself, please.
There we go. I can unmute now. I couldn't unmute a second ago. Thank you. This is Dan DeMay from MDM. Everybody hear me all right?
Yes, Dan, thank you.
So can I share the screen here? I can show the, I'll bring up the slide that we had from before. All right, so this is the figure here. So we collected empirical data at 3 different facilities owned by the applicant. 2 of them are in New Hampshire, and 1 of them is in Carver, Massachusetts. 2 of them we were able to have daily numbers. So on a daily trip basis, we're looking at 840 to 1,000 trips on a weekday, and 1,050 to 1,153 on a typical Saturday.
So just to be clear, it is true that on a Saturday, there could be an expectation of over 1,000 trips per day.
Over the course of the 24 hours, correct.
Okay, thanks for clearing that up, because we've been hearing just different information when somebody says 1,000 trips per day, that do the math, but I had read your math, and by your math, it's right there. So I was making sure I was reading your table correctly.
The table is correct. And then these are on the first two is the Friday morning, again, around 40 trips. The Friday evening, up to about 95. Then the Saturday midday, which is generally between the one peak hour between 11 and 2, 106 trips.
And that's
And those are all vehicles. The majority of those, and I believe you saw these slides last time, are in fact the blue here are passenger cars versus an RV or a pull behind, which are just a few trips throughout the day.
Yeah, so even though those trips are very minimalized, there still could be an expected traffic increase of about 500 to 600 cars per trip, not cars, trips per day, because a car obviously leaves and goes back, and that's 2 trips. Correct?
Correct. So it could be a combination of cars entering, exiting. They could go in and out. They could come in or they could leave. Yeah, the total number of two-way flow is 1,000, about 500 in, 500 out. That is correct.
Okay, thanks for clearing that up. While I still have you there, another question about that, the traffic study, and it has more to do with the turn radius, and it's another exhibit 1, but specifically the 2 of the turn radiuses or radii. When you leave, that shows you leave in the campsite and turning left onto Michael's Road, which is something you say that, you know, with all the directions and signage that you're gonna post, that this shouldn't happen. Was this just to show us that if it could happen, even though it shouldn't happen, it could, and it's feasible of it to happen?
That's correct. So we designed them appropriately for the design vehicles of the site. So we looked at an RV, 30-foot long, a 40-foot larger RV, and we also looked at the fire truck. So to accommodate all the movements without going over it, we had designed the initial driveway to accommodate the larger RVs having the ability to make that right turn in. That turn, they're gonna put signage up, so, and you can even restrict it if you wanted to. But it has the ability to accommodate all different types of design vehicles. That's correct.
Okay, thanks. Hey, can we put up one other map there? Could you show the intersection going from Longview Ave turning onto Michael's Road? To me, this is a major concern of an area. If you can see, the traffic is allowed to go either right or left when they're making their turn off of Michael's Road onto Longview. And right as your picture shows, that vehicle turning left off of Longview onto Michael's Road, it has to cross over the center line. And if someone's pulling out of, say, Rose Drive, that's right there, or coming up Michael's Road, there's no yield sign in either way. And your traffic study didn't find any concerns with that?
They're both under stop control. So this movement would have to stop, and this movement has to stop on this side.
They do, I agree with that, but there's traffic coming before that triangle in the middle of, in the middle of the intersection. And by your own drawing, the traffic crosses over the center line. And if somebody were, you know, at like a second black dot trying to take a left on that, and someone's coming down that road taking a left, how is that not an issue?
So if I'm not familiar if there is a yield sign existing there or not, but the vehicle over here would have to yield, so that's a sign that could be added.
Okay, but
I'm sure the applicant would work with the town to add the sign if that's something that the town wanted.
okay, thank you. Yeah, do you have anything that you want to ask before I keep going?
No, keep going.
So another concern that I have, and this is probably for you, Brent, is, you know, in the past, Northgate has received, you know, special permits for campgrounds in other areas. And obviously one of the big concerns is that you have shown in the past that once you got into an area that you're likely to expand. Do you have plans to expand in the future more than this 317 sites? And if you don't have plans, would you be accepting of, or would Northgate be accepting of a condition where, there would be no more applying for special permits to increase, or are you not willing to put that kind of hindrance on a business?
I would defer the question with respect to the business that Ms. Bossenbrook, but I would state that if we were to, any potential expansion beyond what is here currently would likely require additional environmental review as well. But I would certainly defer to Chelsea to answer that question more clearly.
Chelsea, do you have anything that you'd like to respond to that?
Yeah, I think it would be, if you can hear me, I think it would be something we'd be willing to consider. That 315 in terms of a site count is sort of a sweet spot for us, as we've indicated previously. So yeah, we'd be open to discussing limiting the number of sites to that 315, 317, whatever it is in our site plan.
Yeah, thank you. Another question probably for you, Chelsea, is, our EMS staff here is all volunteer. Would you be providing any medical staff on the premises, or, obviously, if you apply in the future for an alcohol permit to sell, and obviously, even if you don't sell it, you can't stop campers from coming in with their coolers. Drinking, obviously it can go very well or it can go bad. Do you have, people can get hurt. Is the medical assistance that's going to be required by Northgate solely on the town to provide it?
So our staff, we have several staff members who are trained in CPR and first aid. Obviously, that doesn't take the place of local first responders. But, I think if you would look at all of our other campgrounds, we really don't have a huge need for local first responders. And our staff does a really good job managing the campers and managing the situations that come up, as well as maintaining any training or certification requirements for sale of alcohol.
Okay, like when you say you have, people trained in like CPR, but you will not have, someone who's technically an EMT on staff.
No, we don't at any of our other locations.
Okay, thank you. Let's see what else I got. Is there how far, Brent, and this might be for you, how far away, it's kind of hard to tell on the site map, how far away is the last pad and camper going to be from Belmont Reservoir? Do you have even an approximation? I know the expansion travels around, that.
We cross, I would say we're comfortably at least 600 feet.
At least 600 feet. Now, do you have, I haven't seen anything, do you have any plans to protect Belmont Reservoir that we're not seeing in the application? Obviously you can't put a fence around something that big, half of it's woodlands in the back anyway. But as far as keeping people from interfering with the lake, 600 feet is not a long walk, especially when there's an access road up there. And obviously you're gonna have your own ponds and the splash pad and things like that. But if a couple want to go up and go skinny dipping, or go and have a couple beers, and swim up there, is there going to be, or would you put cameras to deter that? And if there were cameras, would there security be there to go and stop and remove those people?
We always intended to commit to the fact that that is a town-owned property here, that we would work, especially for the fact that we intend to utilize portions of that water access road as a part of our secondary emergency access into the property. We don't control that easement specifically. We would welcome cooperation with the town, whether it's Department of Public Works and the police department, to better find a way to address those specific concerns that they have. I expected that would be something that would likely be a condition of a special permit, frankly, to give us a chance to work with those first responders and the water department to see what is their preference as it relates to security measures. There may be things that we suggest that they actually would prefer that we not do. So we have every intention, and Chelsea could probably speak to the details of the security plan and how they utilize cameras throughout their other facilities. But it's always been our expectation that, understanding our proximity to the reservoir, that a component of this would be some sort of future effort with the town to better control what that access is. My understanding that's currently an issue for the police department, but as a good neighbor and a good group coming into town, we'd be happy to work with town to better address those specific concerns.
Okay, so just to be clear, like right now, there's no specific plan, but if this board or the town wanted to, put a condition on something like that, you'd be willing to work.
Very reasonable, absolutely.
Okay. I do have several more, but let's get off me for a second so I can, look at what I want to act next. Does anybody that's here have anything, a quick comment that they want to say? Yeah. When you do have to come up, speak into the mic, state your name and address, please. And again, I'm not sure if you were here last time, but we went through this for a while, so we can keep it as brief as possible. That'd be great. And appreciate it.
It'll be brief. My name's Walter. Oh, my name's Walter Ulmer. I own property very close to Emerson. Our address is on Robinson Road, and you show first traffic coming off Michael's Road. What about traffic going into Robinson Road? We can't even get through cars practically without getting beat. So take that into mind when you got RVs. Secondly, 315 RVs going into this park. What's going to stop us from doing the same thing? We can also put 315 RVs if they're doing that. There's no reason why we can't. So start thinking about 700 RVs. Start thinking about 200 trailers, because we can mirror image it, and you got no reason to turn around and say we can't, but they can. And I can get the financing. I don't see any problems with that.
Yeah,
that's all I want to say.
mean for
My wife and I.
Yeah.
We own that property outright. We have no liens on it. It's just the two of us. If we decide that this cesspool comes into town, we can do the same thing. So get ready for that. Thank you.
Anyone else, or I'll keep going. And again, another discovery I just want to confirm with Chelsea, and I'm pretty sure she was going to confirm it because it was from an email from her. So at a typical camp, you expect like your average is like 3.86 people per campsite, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so, if you were at full capacity, it'd be like 1,220 some people. But what capacity do you usually operate at? Like, do you operate at 75%? Is your camps usually filled to 90%? Obviously, if it was only 50%, you wouldn't have access to so many campsites, because then it just make you go ahead and fill camp, and you're not can't fill what you have. So what is your expected capacity of these 317 sites?
The occupancy numbers usually ramp up. So as we create a customer base and return customer, they typically ramp up. I don't have exact occupancy percentages to give you offhand, but I could give some comparable data at our other campgrounds if that's helpful.
That would be great. Do you have that information now, or?
I don't have it now. Nope, I'd have to have our revenue team pull it.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask? If I can intervene, if they could give that data over a period of, the season they're open, because it will vary in spring and fall. And we'd like to know that.
Yeah, Chelsea, did you happen to hear that?
I heard that it would be helpful to have that data spread over several months. Do I have that right? So like a 6-month period, would that be helpful?
Over that, obviously, with the period when you're not open, but over the period, over the time when you're open, if how that fluctuates, like, are you at like 30% starting in April, and then you move up to
Sure.
In July, but we can see like the bell curve of how that goes, or if it's not a bell curve, it's just flat across the board.
Sure. Yeah, I was clarifying because some of our campgrounds are open year round in Texas, California, Louisiana.
Yeah, makes sense. Another question I had is there seems to be like some discrepancies, it's not really discrepancies. There's some suggestions that differ from the DPC report and the MDM or the white engineering report and suggestions from the DPC. At this time, I would like to, if they're willing, call on a member of the DPC just to give us a quick, not so much the report that we just received today, because obviously white engineering and the board needs more time to discuss that. But could you just give the board a little bit of a clearer understanding of some of these suggestions that you found based on looking at the white engineering report, and also, you know, I mean, obviously we have them already, you don't need to go through all of them, but just what you consider the most important and how you feel it impacts or should impact our decision. Thank you.
Dave Prickett with DPC Engineering. I'll do my best to try to summarize the kind of key review comments, questions, suggestions, Mr. Chairman, in layman's terms. Never a good idea to try to ask an engineer to do that, but I'll give it a shot.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
I jotted down kind of 6 themes, right? And I'll just take them one at a time. Please interject if you have questions regarding each one. First off, we tend to be pretty apolitical relative to whether or not you want to proceed with this project. So our job is to review the proponent's proposed development, come up with considerations that you can take into account, and then you make the decision. So if you were to advance the project, first item would be that you require the proponent to address all town review comments to the satisfaction of the town. I think that Brent's already made a good faith effort that the developer will do their best to work through those issues with us. And most of them are not impossible to work through, pretty common. Second item is relative to the sewer, and we stated this briefly last time. The 2 main concerns or considerations are the condition of the downstream infrastructure and the potential for odors and corrosion. So relative to the downstream infrastructure, the proposed developments tying into an older piece of the sewer system, the gravity section that ultimately flows down into Dalton. You as the town would want to know what the condition of that system is, should you move forward. And second of all, the majority of the proposed sewer system on the developer's parcel consists of pumps. So there's a significant potential, if not addressed in the design, for odors and corrosion, both aesthetic issues and also deterioration of concrete manholes, things like that. Again, I think we could work through that with Brent should you move forward, but that's an important element that the town would want to protect themselves. Relative to the water, I think we had some good back and forth with Bob since the last meeting. I'm less concerned about where things are tied in, but I am advocating that that easement remain fully unencumbered for the town. There shouldn't be any primary use. I think you'd want to have unrestricted access on that easement at any time. Your source of water for the entire town is right up that road. So that's pretty important. Number 4 on traffic, we tried to provide some supplementary comments via our memo today, just relative to some 3 pinch points where the town might ask the developer to improve on shoulders and such. I don't think it's going to make, it's a rural area. So the increase in vehicles is of concern. And there were a lot of comments relative to pedestrian safety, and they're valid. But there are 3 pinch points, I think, that Jeremy's done a good job identifying. These are areas that can be worked on. Item number 5. And
Sorry to interrupt, but that was just in the document we just received today, correct? Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So
And
they're
pretty soft suggestions. I don't know if Brent's had a chance to get in there, but they're things that could be improved without totally blowing it up and reconstructing, state highways to and from the subject parcel. The next one, and I think this is the item where there probably would be some dissension, but we believe that the town should require water and sewer connection charges of the developer for both water and sewer for the increase in the number of EDUs for the redevelopment of the parcel. And you summarized it very well before that at peak capacity, you're looking at about 1,200 people. If I'm not mistaken, Hinsdale's population is only about 2,000. So it's a major source. And the reason that I believe the town should pursue the discussion of connection fees is you have a finite water capacity, which you do control. But on the wastewater side, you're subject to the mercy of your intermunicipal agreement with Dalton and then over to Pittsfield. So you're giving away gold when you give away that capacity. All the existing water and sewer users have been paying for the infrastructure over the last 10, 20, 40 years. And it's pretty customary, as it is in other area communities in the Berkshires, the connection charges be paid. I understand that this is not typical of like a little 1, 2, 3 unit subdivision. I mean, it's a major development, so I would encourage the town to make that a condition should you move forward of the considerations. And the last bullet I jotted down, and I've seen too many things unravel with perceived responsibilities. The town should require that a formal developer's agreement be put into place. And what that would do is clearly spell out the responsibilities of the town, the responsibilities of the developer, major milestones remaining for permitting, and if there are fees to be paid, whether it be for water and sewer connections, or taxes, et cetera, they could be clearly spelled out and the proponent can plan for those costs and when they would be made due. I don't want to name other communities, but not too far from Hinsdale, we've seen some squirrely stuff happen with developers, and I'm not suggesting that's the case with this proponent, very well organized, but I would want the town to have that protection moving forward. It's good for both parties. That was an attempt for an engineer to try to keep things as simple as possible. But
thank you, I appreciate it. That was very good. One more question. As far as the condition of the infrastructure of the pipes, down the sewage and pipes up away from the facility, obviously, in one of your report, you request a camera inspection. Is that something that your company does?
yeah, we had actually put a proposal in front of Bob last year based on where we were with water and sewer rates. We deferred that for a year. That was a follow-up to the state's infiltration and info requirements, which the town did phases 1 and 2, and that was essentially phase 3. So it represents, I think, Bob, it was just under half of the gravity sewer infrastructure in Hinsdale that would be, I call common sewer to the proposed development. So I don't believe that that you need to know all the information about those downstream pipes relative to ZBA, but should this move forward, you'd want to preserve your right to require that information. And again, the discussion relative to connection fees or fixing existing infrastructure, I think it can be had, but they both result in the same thing, is that, you know, a new development doesn't come in without consideration of the infrastructure and then putting everything back on the existing water and sewer users. Seems to be a common theme that's been drilled into my head over the last 5 years when we do rate hearings, you know, by a lot of the residents. So,
Dave, thank you very much.
thank you.
Right, do you have anything to respond to that?
The first time it was with respect to the memo that we did receive today. I did have the opportunity to review that as well as some GIS mapping. I would tend to agree that they seem to be reasonable proposals. There's certainly diligence that would need to be done to further evaluate those, but nothing that jumped out at our team as onerous or out of line with those recommendations. So we're happy to do further investigations to see how practical that is or what concerns there may be that we need to resolve with the town with regards to the connection fees. I can appreciate the position as your consultant, not just for reviewing this project, but looking at the town, the need for the connection fees. I guess the The issue in this specific matter is we had been under the impression since, and Chelsea could probably speak to this in greater length, that there would not be a connection fee charged as part of this process. So just in terms of analyzing the business, analyzing the matters going forward, that's the impression that we had. So when we received the memorandum in November, that was a surprise to us. And I guess our goal would be, if there is going to be a connection fee, we're just really trying to understand what that rate structure looks like.
Okay, so you're requesting more information on that rate structure and what the connection fee would be.
I think that would be very helpful for my client to evaluate that, please.
Okay, but as far as zoning goes, in my opinion on that, and tell me if you feel that I'm wrong, that whatever the connection fee is, it really doesn't affect the board's decision, of whether the project should go forward. If we, approve the special permit and the project goes forward, and then you're taxed with an outrageous connection fee, that's really up to you to either continue on with the project, negotiate that, or scrap the project, I guess. I mean, I don't see how getting you the number on connection fee really helps the board make their decision.
We were not sure, based on the reading of the memorandum, if that was a commitment we are going to need to make in order to have the special permit proceedings continue.
Okay.
Which again is just a matter of quick review, quick turnaround time, just not having had the chance to have a greater discussion. We realize that discussion will not end this evening as well.
Right. So are you willing to, if we as a board put the conditions on it, that basically these issues that were brought up by the town's report and DPC, would you put, if we put like a condition on the permit that you need to work this out with the town, is that something, and with DPC, is that something you'd be willing to work, or do we need to hash out all these answers before, you're willing to even proceed?
I'm actually going to defer that question to Chelsea first, if I may, please.
So when we submitted the application, before we even submitted to the planning board, there was an on-site discussion, as I understand it. Brent met with Public Works and discussed connection fees. So we underwrote this deal with the understanding that the connection fees were what was communicated to us at the time. So if that is going to change significantly from what we were told and what we relied on, then yeah, it could have an impact of not making this an economic development for us. So that is something that we would want to better understand before we make a decision on whether or not to move forward.
Okay, I understand that. We'll try to get that information, but I guess what I'm saying is that whether you move forward or not really depends on this step first, as getting your special permit, and then whatever the monetary expense you incur is really up to you. If you don't get the special permit passed, it really doesn't matter if the connection fee is $3 million, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's accurate.
What else we got? Hey, Chelsea, why you're right there. So, obviously these last couple of years were really, chaotic with the COVID pandemic. Heaven forbid it happens again, but, if we have another variant or a new, pandemic, and there starts to be travel restrictions, did you guys develop a plan for like these last couple of seasons? Did you have to shut down some of your sites? Did you in fact block people from coming from different states when, Massachusetts said that? And how can you really verify it just by where the campers are registered? And like, what if, this is all in Massachusetts and you're allowed to travel from the eastern part of the state to the western part of the state, but the rate is so much higher in Boston than it is here. Do you have any kind of protection plan already in place based on your experiences these last couple of years?
We do. And the great thing about camping is that in a lot of cases, these are self-contained units that people bring on site, and it's largely an outdoor activity. So depending on the jurisdiction in the state that we were operating in, we came up with plans. We worked in conjunction with local health departments to, limit use of indoor amenities. We had to shut down indoor spaces at some of our camp resorts. We had to verify at some of our campgrounds in New Hampshire where guests were coming from. So it really was dependent on both the state and working with local municipalities and coming up with what that plan was. And it varied across the board. Some states were much more willing to defer to us. Other states wanted to take a really hands-on approach. And so, we worked very closely with each different municipality and jurisdiction to come up with those operating plans.
Okay, another question for you is, you talk about, and one of your benefits to the town, like the employment impact, and you say that there, like within the first couple of years, there'll be 50 plus, jobs created. And then in like 3 to 5, 100 additional in like 3 to 5, where does this 100 additional employment people come from? Is it because you're kind of already planning on an expansion? Or just you feel that after it gets more established, there'll just be more need for help?
There's more need for additional staffing. So as occupancy picks up, we employ a management team, we have facilities, security, rangers who provide landscaping and trash pickup. We have food and beverage, we have housekeeping staff. We have recreational activities that are done on site. So we have a rec team that provides that. We have reservationists. So as occupancy picks up and the campground gets more full, then we staff up. And those numbers are pretty consistent with, if not conservative, based on our other locations and the number of sites.
When you do, if you get this permit, the special permit, and you start building, is it your intention to use local work or sub it out to the cheapest contractors you can find?
We typically engage with local engineers, with local contractors. We use local hardware companies. We try to keep a lot of the work pretty localized. We find that that's really the best way to get it done when we have local people who understand other contacts in the community. That's how we've done it at most of our camp resorts. If we have something very specialized, like a splash pad or something like that, we have a contractor who we've used for a lot of those contracts, but typically all of the earthwork, site work, utility work, building, that's local contractors.
Thank you. Could you also, you mentioned, the application makes reference to it being a benefit, of the town. Can you just go over in your mind or what you think some of the benefits to the town would be? I know obviously like tax revenue, but the way Hinsdale's tax structure is worked, it really only taxes, the property. And obviously you're going to be spending 10, by your own evaluation, somewhere in the near range of about $10 million. But in my opinion, that the way the tax structure is, that land, even if you do that, I don't believe that a land with 155 acres with 317 concrete pads on it is going to be evaluated at $10 million. So can you just speak to the benefits or what you foresee as the benefits of the town besides the jobs that you just mentioned?
Sure. I don't want to speak to, what a reassessment could result in because I don't know, frankly. But what I do want to mention is that, as I understand it, the property is now currently assessed at a recreational rate. So the use of that would change. And so the property wouldn't be assessed at that lower recreational open space rate. Again, I don't want to speculate as to what the property tax increase could be because I don't know. But I think there is that benefit. I also think, as you mentioned, the jobs that would be created and tourist spending. When people come to our campgrounds, they're doing so because they want to see the local area. They want to go out for dinner. They want to pick up their groceries on the way into town. They're there to be on vacation. And so they're more likely to spend money into the local economy.
Yes.
I'm very fortunate in my business that I have the opportunity to work with a number of different businesses, such as Northgate, as well as other recreational summer camps, local-based commercial institutions, and private homeowners, both locals to Berkshire County as well as second-family homeowners. And a great deal of the second homeowners that we work with, they've gotten their introduction to this area from one draw or another, whether it's they went to summer camp here, they went to college here. In my view, for not just the town of Hinsdale, but Berkshire County, this property might be the very first chance to introduce someone to the Berkshire Hills. Not everybody has the opportunity to go to certain sorts of hotels or resorts. It's a family function. I know my wife, her family grew up camping their entire childhood. Frankly, I look forward to being a customer of Northgate. I have no interest of buying an RV, storing one, or insuring one, but the ability to make a reservation, come here for 4 or 5 days, enjoy all the amenities on site, leave. I can't overrest as a father of 2 young boys. I think this is going to be for not just the town of Hinsdale, but for the entire county. And it's going to expose people to Hinsdale. And I think that as they come here and decide that they enjoy this facility, they might decide that they too eventually might want to be residents as well. And I don't want to understate that that is a very possible draw with this type of facility. It's a family facility.
Stay there for 1 second. Chelsea, a follow-up question about like the employment and stuff like that. What's the typical, pay scale of, your employees? Is that these, $15 hour jobs? Are they salary jobs?
So we typically have a number of management level positions that are salaried. We have year-round management positions. We have supervisors that are typically salaried, all the way down to minimum wage rec person who's leading arts and crafts. So it really runs the gamut.
And where do you expect to find help? I own a small company, and I know a lot of other small companies around here are struggling to find help. This area isn't loaded with people that are willing to work. In fact, I think every place is hiring. Do you have any secret to how you're going to staff this?
No secret. It takes a large team in our HR department to recruit. We had many challenges with labor, just as everybody else did this year. It's been a challenge, but we also have a core group of employees, and typically that management staff is really on the front line trying to recruit, build partnerships with local, whether it's a hospitality program at a community college, whether it's a high school counselor, really building relationships to funnel jobs to our location. It takes a lot of work, and like I said, we struggled with it just as much as everybody else this year, but that's how we staff.
Thank you. Brent, while you're up here, so are these the full set of construction documents, or is this more of like a permit set? There's just certain things, as I'm in construction, that I don't see like, how the pads are constructed, like how deep they are, what the base layer is, the amount of rebar that's in them. Is this what you're submitting as your construction document?
We are submitting these as a permit set to understand, to get to a point where we know we will actually have permission to build the property out as we need. But when we file for our actual building permits and our sewer connection permits, the first thing I have to do when I have a project that requires either an order of conditions or a special permit, we will actually incorporate any special conditions that are in the permit and update the plan set to reflect that. For instance, one of the items that was raised under the discussion of sewer was, rather than for the farthest outreach of the campground, rather than putting that force main, which will be seasonal, we intended to shut that off, and that would be a part of the operation and maintenance plan. We had intended for that to be just below the road, insulated and secured on top of the culvert. The recommendation was that that be directionally drilled underneath the stream so that it is frost protected. The plans would be updated to reflect those details as well as additional construction details that we would get working with the Eversource utility, things to that effect as well. So there will be greater detail by the time we pull building permits, absolutely.
I think it would be helpful for the board to see some kind of demolition plan, and your site clearing plan. Obviously you can superimpose, the old Camp Emerson over top of the new development, but it doesn't really give a clear, you can kind of pick and see, what buildings are there, but it doesn't really give, a clear plan of how many buildings are being demolished and how much land you're clearing. There's a lot of field space there, but I know like around the wetland areas that you get, that's all wooded. Like you're obviously plan on doing a lot of tree removal.
We do have tree removal proposed, and if it would be helpful to the board to have a separate full-size sheet that shows the entire property. I believe there were some recommendations.
I would like to see a demolition plan of what the buildings are, what the buildings are saying and what are going. And then also a site plan of kind of showing what is there now as open space and how much more open space here, if that's possible.
I think that's awesome.
Right, thank you.
Welcome. Can I just add one extra to the previous discussion with Justin with respect to the public benefit? We took to heart a lot of the feedback that we received during the first meeting and understand, especially from many of the residents on Michael's Road, that what's referred to as the marina property for the camp that's on the actual water itself, that has raised some potential concerns in terms of Northgate patrons' use for that. We did submit, Ms. Wassenbrook submitted a correspondence last Friday indicating if we are able to secure a special permit, if we're able to secure an order of conditions and move forward to this as a show of good faith to not only address the concerns of the neighbors of Michael's Road, but to also try and provide an additional benefit to the residents of Hinsdale, that we would donate that property to be available for public use for anyone who lives in town that does not have access to the water. So we do not want that to be lost. That is something we have submitted and would, upon being able to receive those permits to build this facility out, we would be willing to provide that to the town.
Yeah, thank you. I'm sure the board has seen that. I'm not sure if everyone else here is. So just to be clear, that Ms. Wassenbrook did offer up the Emerson Marina property is going to, if a special permit is allowed, they were donated back to the town to do basically whatever they want with it, make it public beach, make it conservation land or whatever, basically, right?
Understood, and I realize there may be many potential uses for that, and that the town will be the one to decide the best way to utilize that property.
Thank you.
I've got a couple. Chelsea, my name is Bruce Alexander. I live near a camp. Is there a 24-hour hotline or a phone that neighbors who are disturbed by noise or smoke or whatever can call?
No, we do not have that at our other parks. We do have an emergency line for our campers to use if they have an emergency, and that typically gets forwarded to the manager on duty. In a lot of cases, we have management staff who live on site, so they can quickly respond to an emergency or something that comes up. But no, we don't typically provide that phone number to neighbors to call in with their concerns.
Would you consider doing something like that?
Yeah, I think we would consider it.
Okay. Another question for you. How reliable is your trade association's website as regards demographics as to the clientele that you appeal to? Can we rely on the data that's on that website?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch what website you're referring to.
Your trade associations, I think there are several. And I looked at a couple of them, and they have quite a bit of, they have a very extensive body of information about the demographics as to the user of your camps all around the country. What I'm asking is, how reliable is that data, do you feel? I mean, it tells us, for example, 9% are kids, 17% are 1 to 17, 18% are 1 to 5, et cetera, et cetera. What I'm asking is, how reliable is this stuff? Do you have a feel for that, please?
What I could do is I could take a look at that and compare it against our reservations data, because we keep pretty good data on both the ages of our guests, as well as we keep some other demographic information. So if you let me know what would be helpful to compare against, we can do that.
Okay. And Jeff has asked about medical, and he's asked about jobs. I think that's good for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
They've answered most of my questions. Does anybody in the audience have anything that they want to quickly say? Yeah. Again, just state your name.
Evening. My name is Eric Boydell, Rose Drive, Hinsdale. I just want to make just one observation about the Northgate letter, because that came in outside of the application. And then I got
which letter is it?
The letter where they're offering the marina potentially. Well, first of all, it's not really part of the application, so it shouldn't be something that should be considered by the ZBA. And also, if you look at it, it's potentially disingenuous, because it includes a condition, which is a $1,600 charge for hooking up 317 campsites. So they're looking to do a quid pro quo to save the money that was just talked about hooking up a additional hookup charge. They're willing to concede this land for a public use, but in return for which they're going to pay $1,600 for 317 campsites. That's what you or I would pay to hook up our house. And that's to hook up, what, 3 or 4 people probably. They're hooking up 1,200 people potentially. The other thing that you have to take into account is once that becomes a public land, then they have offloaded the liability for the town, to the town rather, for the use by their people. They can't control, just because they give up the marina doesn't mean that they can control who uses the marina. The only thing that they're giving up potentially is a couple of motorboat usages during the course of the day. But they have now shifted the liability to the town. Who is going to be responsible for taking care of that? The beach we have right now is swim at your risk. And now we're going to have potentially any number of the 1,200 people visiting us swimming at their risk. As you said, maybe drinking alcohol up at the RV park, maybe drinking alcohol down now at the marina, which is now your responsibility, my responsibility. Okay, now I'll just get to the questions. I'm not going to go into what Mr. Scrimo sent today, just directly addressing a letter. But one thing that, we're talking about the issue of letting them come in here, but in order to get a special permit, it's not just enough to show that the traffic studies touch all the bases, the water studies touch all the bases. Anytime, you're in construction, anytime developers do these studies, they do touch all the bases. They never fail the test, otherwise they would never come here. The issue for you as a ZBA is whether it is good for Hinsdale, not whether it touches all the bases. And that's why we have section 6A2 of the bylaws, which says in order for you to issue a special permit, there must be a demonstration that the proposed use by Northgate is not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than the current non-conforming use by Camp Emerson. And I have raised that in both sets of papers. I know, I'm sorry, I probably put you to a lot of unnecessary reading, but I thought it was important. They have never addressed that issue. They've totally skirted that issue. And I would love for them to address how looking at Camp Emerson's use of this town for 7 weeks in the summer, with campers who never leave the camp, with some staff who maybe go out on a day off here or there, how is their proposed use by them and by their people who are going to come visit them, their guests, how is it not going to be substantially more detrimental? And maybe we could just look at certain items. And again, I know we have traffic studies.
We know that that's a situation and we know how the bylaws read.
Right.
And so that is a concern, obviously, of the board. That is the board's.
Okay. And so that would be my question. And we have to look at how it is for Hinsdale, not how it might be somewhere else in the world. What are the townspeople in Hinsdale used to as a quality of life? And how is their quality of life going to be affected? Also, the demands on the infrastructure. It can't be said that 1,200 people potentially coming in on a daily basis, using our water, using our sewers, using our pipes, using our roads with heavy vehicles is not going to affect our infrastructure to the point where our taxes, all of our taxes, yes, their taxes will too, but they're only a small component of it. All of our taxes are going to go up because when every useful life of everything in this town is accelerated because of overuse, we're all going to be paying more.
All right,
Okay.
and all this stuff is in your letter.
Okay.
So I gotta cut
Okay,
you off.
one more, just one
No,
question.
I can't.
Can
Otherwise-
I just ask one question? Just one question.
Easy.
Okay, this, be fast.
Yeah.
Okay, the special permit that was submitted said they want to expand the use of the commercial campground in the R5 district. I just asked, where is there any provision in the bylaws to allow for a special permit for a campground? They did not apply for a special permit for a summer camp. They applied for a special permit to expand the campground use.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Attorney Sherman, do you want to respond to that at all?
There's two briefs that I've submitted to the board. Both briefs deal with the fact that a commercial campground is a form of a commercial summer camp. The word camp and the word campground, it's all through the briefs. The word camp and the word campground and campsite are synonymous. They're synonyms in the dictionary. There's no definite definition for commercial summer camp. The question for the board, which we talked about previously and is in both sets of briefs, is what is a commercial summer camp? Children's camps have a definite name in Massachusetts law. They are they're recreational camps for children. So children's camps are called recreational camps for children. That's not summer camp. That's not commercial summer camp, not the same words. The word commercial summer camp is a broader category that probably includes recreational camps for children, but also includes what we submit, which is a commercial campground, a commercial summer campground, commercial summer camp. The words are almost identical, quite honestly. But if you were to look at the definitions, they are the same. We have requested a commercial summer campground. We submit that falls under the category of commercial summer camp.
Okay, thank you. We have, both Ms. Goodell's and, your response.
Thank you.
Obviously, now it's up to the board to decide what their meaning of the definition is.
Correct. Thank you very much.
Get right to you, Brent.
I just want to add to respond to one specific item with respect to the marina property. I sat through a 3.5-hour meeting 2 weeks ago and heard concerns about boat traffic, and we can only have 2 boats on the lake. And so I would push back on the mischaracterization that it's only a couple boats that we're giving up here. Our client took that feedback and made a good faith effort to try and address that concern. If the town doesn't want the property, we won't donate it. We're not trying to skirt liability or just hand it off. We heard a concern. There's not enough public access. There's a concern about the number of boats that are going to be on this property. If the docks are removed and no boats, you're not going to have boat traffic from the marina. So that's all.
Thank you.
My name is Lloyd Bruce. I live at 55 South Shore Road. And I submitted a letter to the board.
Yeah,
Actually,
we did receive that letter and it is been filed.
What I try to establish in that letter is the term.
Dwayne, I don't mean to interrupt you, but we have that letter. We've received that letter. We've read that letter. We're not gonna have people come up here like we did last time and reread their submissions. Do you have a new question?
Yes, I have a question for the attorney. I've made several objections in my letter to your argument. I argue that your use exclusively of Merriam-Webster is ill-considered. I argue that you don't understand what a compound term is, and I argue that historically the term commercial summer camp, as it would have been understood in 1979, meant camp for children attended in the summer. So I'd like you to respond to those objections to your.
Thank you. Do you wish to respond or you don't? Obviously.
Yeah, I'm gonna say the same thing. So.
Yeah.
Well, I thank you for your opinion on the issue. I would restate.
Just speak.
I don't want to restate it again and again, but a commercial summer camp, the definitions are set out. It's not defined in the bylaw. The definitions are set out at length. The opposing parties created some or came up with some other definitions of which we had talked about one previously, which uses the word. Some of them in other dictionaries say a camp, comma, especially for children. The word especially is important because that's not an exclusive to a definite, that's not an exclusive word. It doesn't mean exclusively for children. It means especially. It's like if you said, I like ice cream, especially chocolate chip. It doesn't mean you don't have the other types of ice cream. It's not exclusive. It is just a qualifier that is, and oftentimes it's that. We've always said that a recreational camp for children probably is a commercial summer camp. It's likely that it is, but we also submit that it's also a commercial summer campground. Thank you.
Thank you. So again, the board has received all these letters. We have so much information and so many definitions of what a summer camp is and what it is not, that we don't need any more information on that. It is now up to the board to decide what they believe the definition of a summer camp is, in my opinion. So if you're going to come up and repeat that, please don't, because you're just wasting people's time. You, ma'am, first, and then you, sir.
I'm Marie Cole, South Shore Road, Hinsdale. I just want to make a couple of points. Thank you for the due process. It's necessary. We have listened to Northgate's proposals, watched them morph the proposals so that it's more appealing to the public. We've had our intelligence checked with word gains. We've had conversations about modest traffic increases, which on our tired, unlit, shoulderless country roads are less than modest by our standards. I think it's exponentially for residents, your numbers are exponentially off. And I think we've heard dismissive and inaccurate accounts of potential water use for 317 pads. And I think that's been documented clearly. We have residents on Robinson Road and Longview who can't take a shower because their pressure is low. They have to wait for the pressure to come up before they can take a shower in their own home on public water. So when you have 317 pads pulling off of the water from the Belmont, and you already have people who are on water restrictions during a drought, can't water their grass, can't wash their car, how is this going to work when they are pulling the water first? That's one question I have. You've listened to concerns from neighbors who are opposed to this. And we appreciate the due process. We appreciate it. So what I did, because I think it is incumbent on anyone who's making this decision to take the drive to Carver, which I did the other day. It took me 4 hours to get there. Took a little ride down to Carver just to see, because the traffic studies are based on the other facilities that you have. And I thought, well, let's just see what's going on in Carver. Well, there are 2 amusement parks within about a 5-mile radius of Yogi Bear's Jellystone Park in Carver. There's a double yellow line road that approaches Shoestring Road, which the park is actually on. There are no neighbors on Shoestring Road, so it's almost a 1/4 of a mile of no neighbors, cranberry bog on both sides. So when you're talking about traffic increases and people checking in at checkpoints with their RVs and talking to an agent and figuring out their tickets and all this, and you have a backup of 15 RVs because somebody up there doesn't have his paperwork. On Shoestring Road, it doesn't matter because you've got a 1/4 of a mile. You can line people up and they can stop, they can get out, they can do whatever they want while they're waiting. In this town, the backup is going to be Michael's Road. So if you have 10 or 15 RVs backed up on Michael's Road with fumes going in people's windows because they live 20 feet from the road with no shoulder, no curb, no anything, it's an enormous difference. Plus the number of pads in Carver, I believe, is far less than the number of pads proposed here. So therefore the traffic studies don't really mesh. I think all of those things are very real concerns. But at the end of the day, I think this fellow probably had it right. I think he knew the bylaws, and I think he said, wait, this can't happen because the bylaws don't allow this. So I'm sorry that you have to recuse yourself because I think you have it right. And you know, the other thing, when we saw this letter on Friday about donating the strip of land on Michael's Road to the town in exchange for $800 water and sewer hookup, the devil's in the details here. This is not a donation. This is costing the town over $500,000 because you're not collecting those. As soon as you agree to take that land, you're collecting $800 and that's it, not the $500,000 that it would be if you had 317 homes and we each had to pay $1,600 to hook up. So I submit to you that there are a couple things here. And I'm confused by the letter, first of all, because this is kind of a condition. The project hasn't even been considered yet. So it's kind of the pixie dust that's being sprinkled on the project. But in my view, this arrangement would cost the town $500,000. They would take on all of the liability. And then you need a new traffic study because then you have 1,200 people walking down the road to get to this nice little strip where they can swim. And anybody who knows that section of the lake knows that it's knee deep water, and there's a real weed problem over there. So this is like this is not a gift. This is not a gift. Hinsdale's having a hard time keeping up with what they have on the other public beach. There's a building in question, talking about maybe rebuilding or whatever. There's no money to do it. I submit that this is pixie dust. Let's blow it off. This is not part of this discussion. The discussion is, are RV parks, and let's talk about definitions. I mean, a PhD in English literature ought to get you somewhere with your defining. And I think, don't insult our intelligence. We know how to use a dictionary, okay? And I think that was an oversimplified explanation of a morphed plan to make this fit into the bylaws that we have. And the town fathers did a really good job with a vision plan for this town to maintain all of the critical environmental concern areas. They did a really good job of writing those bylaws. So exactly this thing wouldn't come into our town. So I tell you, you have to drive to Carver. You have to look at this place and then envision that nestled into our little neighborhood. And Hinsdale is described as a town that is one neighborhood. That's how it's described on the internet. It's one little neighborhood. And you know what? When you see it, you're gonna say, whoa, wait a minute. The town fathers had it right when they said no RV parks. So thank you.
Thank you. You don't need to respond to any of that, right? Attorney Scrimmel?
We just make a comment.
Yeah, just a second, sir. Let Attorney Scrimmel respond to, since he was directly.
I'm really not gonna, I'm not gonna argue about the definition anymore.
No.
It's all brief.
Thank you.
I do just want to make a comment on the $800 thing. The reason that those numbers are in there, that's the numbers that are on the books in terms of what the hookup fees would be. So
Into that mic.
the reason for the $800 in the letter is that that's what the hookup fees would be according to the books. That's what it is. And that was what we were told originally was going to be how the project would proceed was with those hookup costs. So.
And that was done by, given to you that information by the previous.
Yeah,
superintendent.
I personally wasn't there. That'll be something for Director Chelsea, but that's where those numbers come from. They're not picked from the sky. That's where they come from. So, you know, it's not a quid pro quo. It's basically what it's saying is that, you know, this is a further benefit for the town. You can debate whether it's a benefit or not, but a lakefront property seems like a benefit to me. By the way, there's not liability on open use property in Massachusetts statute against. That's why you can walk around Tanglewood without the Tanglewood properties without any liability on Tanglewood. So that being said, you know, the portions of the letter that say $800 and that sort of thing are just to be clear that this is what we understand that it would cost us to be involved with this, and we hope that the project comes through, but we want to give this benefit to the town. So that, I mean, that's the simple explanation for it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dick Bruceson, I actually live on Michael's Road. And when I had heard today through the grapevine and had to confirm tonight that the Northgate was offering the marina as a quote benefit to the town, I was very, very taken aback. It shows a lack of understanding of the situation there on a daily basis in the summertime. And the situation is there's free parking spaces for vans to move those vans in and out with the current traffic. There's a person direct from the camp directing traffic to let the vans in and out. You can just imagine with 1,000 vehicles running up and down the road and people from our town or vehicles who are visiting the Northgate site, trying to maneuver in that little tiny space with no oversight is just absolutely ludicrous, dangerous, and irresponsible. So I would have to agree with the previous speaker, who is a very tough act to follow, by the way, that is not a benefit to the town of Hinsdale. And I was further taken aback when I heard the rumors this morning and had them confirmed that we're getting firm negotiations on an application that hasn't been submitted by people in the town who don't even work here anymore. And we're putting our stamp on that. I find that wishful thinking and extremely unlikely. Thank you. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Getting ugly again. Linda? Bob, we're gonna go to Steve next. Did you hear me? We're gonna go to that Steve, looks like he has his hand raised. We'll do a Zoom one, mix it up a little.
Hi, I'm Libby Garmy. I'm the facilities manager at Camp Emerson. What a lot of you people do not know, that Camp Emerson has its own lake with a beach, little beachfront, people can use for swimming. people be using for kayaking. We also have a 150,000 gallon pool, which I am the CPO. I am the one liable to take care of that pool. They're also putting in a 35,000 square foot splash pad. Who wants to go to that little lake? And just for the facts, for 25 years, I was a caretaker of that little beach. We don't have people from Hinsdale going there. The people are from Dahlin. They're mostly from Pittsfield. They're daycares and other people that come in from Beckett also. So you're all going on and on about, you know, they're gonna come into your little lake. Well, first of all, it belongs to the town. It doesn't belong just to you. And no one is gonna wanna go there because it's not the best lake in town. If they wanna go to a really nice lake, then they would go up to Ashmere. Thank you.
Oh. Yeah, we're gonna, oh, yeah. Steve, are you there?
He just has to unmute himself.
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great. Thank you for taking my comments here. My name is Steve Wagenbach. I live at 265 South Shore Road, or we own 265 South Shore Road. Myself, my wife, my three boys have been there for coming up on 5 years. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about what attracted us to the town of Hinsdale and the lake community itself. It is a place for us to get away. We were attracted by the remote and rural feel of the community, the smallness of the community, and that's what we hope will continue. I think I would ask the board to be really careful with all of this nuance around definitions. I think it's likely that you would be closer to what the spirit of the zoning bylaws that were put into place at the time, and not getting caught up in some of these definitions around, you know, what is and what is not. I would also point out that, you know, after 2 meetings now, there's really only been one person, I think it was the same person who just spoke, that's spoken out in favor of this project, except for the people that stand to benefit financially from the project. That says a lot for me as a community member, and I hope it does to you as well. My biggest concern with the project is that it brings in a lot of people, a lot of volume, and a lot of people that don't have a vested interest in our community. And it brings in a business which really doesn't have a vested interest in our community. They're remote owners, and it's just not possible to have a vested interest in the community in that kind of circumstance. And I would say that back to the spirit of the bylaws, but also the spirit of the and not even the spirit, the letter of, you know, the Hinsdale vision plan. It's really difficult for me to see, and I hope for you too, to see how this project really benefits the town. There really haven't been, you know, clear and tangible benefits, you know, quantifiable benefits that we can really point to, and that's concerning. But I think without a doubt, I mean, it's a far cry. This sort of project would run counter to what's been outlined by the Hinsdale vision plan. And there's a lot of work that was put into that for good reason, I presume. But this just doesn't, you know, get us further there. So I would like to ask the board to think hard about this. I know you will. I know you have been, but I would really ask that you deny this application. And that's it. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. Just one thing to clarify. For your information, obviously there has at this meeting only been one person to speak out or speak up in favor, but there is a petition that has been part of the documentation that is available on the town website, and several other people have signed that petition in support, just so you know. And more apparently have come in today.
Yeah, but I think the volume of people that speak up here and they come to, I would be there if I could. I could not, but you know, you either show up.
I just wanted to let you know that there is some support on the town website as well. I agree with you, most of it is opposed, but there is some that's support.
Fair enough. Thanks, Jeff.
I'm Bill Lowe, 187 South Shore Road in Hinsdale. I just have a question for MDM. When we had the first presentation by Northgate, the person presented and they said it's a 3-day minimum stay. And most people are going to come on the weekends to when they vacation up here. And in the MDM study, you took existing traffic patterns, and I believe Sunday was the busiest historic day on Longview Road. And he also mentioned that on Saturday, that most of it was car traffic because people were already there and they wanted to go to other places. So if most people are coming Friday and they're leaving Sunday, how come we didn't track or estimate the amount of usage on Sunday, considering Sunday is our busiest day on Longview already? Because most people are going to be going home on Sunday. But so the illusion that, well, there's only a small percentage of RVs on Saturday, yes, but people have to go home on Sunday. So is there any reason why we didn't count Sunday in the projections?
Dave, are you still there? Would you like to respond to that?
I'm still here. The overall peak traffic time is going to be the Saturday midday, I believe.
The peak travel, yeah, what he said, what your partner said at the last meeting was, those are simply cars because they come with multiple cars. That's what he said at the meeting. And we're concerned about the amount of RVs that are on the road as well. And so is there any way you can include the projected RV usage based on Sunday usage on top of our existing Sunday usage? Because that's when people are going to go home.
We can look into those numbers on what the Sunday would be versus the Saturday. The Saturday conditions are going to be the peak overall for the site and the street traffic combined, but we can definitely look at the Sunday and get back to the board on that.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. I have a question for you, Brent. So along with the water issue, your study estimated at I believe 50 gallons a day per campsite, and that's how you were coming up with that number. But why is it 50 gallons per day if we're at 35? Like if Ramaca had showed that each camper uses 35 gallons per day, why is the site with an estimated 3.5, 4 people only using 50 when it's been determined that a kid at Ramaca uses 35?
Well, let me explain that. First off, that 35 gallons per day, that is the flow as defined by Title V.
So that's not Ramaca's an actual number?
No, it's not. And I represent a number of summer camps who are on public water supplies, which are very heavily regulated by the Mass Department of Environmental Protection.
That is actually Ramaca's numbers. I went through their water bills. Yes. That's their actual number. Yes, it is. I saw that too. You can check with Jeff Saltz. He gave us both. He's on. You can check with him now.
The board will look into that, but finish, go ahead.
Sure. Well, 35 gallons per day, that is the Title V design flow for a summer camper. I'm happy to look at the water bill and see what that is. I also had a chance to look at Fernwood with similar use, obviously lesser units than we have, but their entire facility is served by 2 public water supply wells for 2,000 gallons per day, and they've got 50 sites. So when I look at that information, and I also review, again, I tried to find some third-party information, not just numbers that I came up with, someone who's actually studied this type of use and really tries to understand how much water do people actually use. That's why we relied on the Forest Service. What's most important in my view, though, with this question of water usage, overall usage is it's going to be metered water. We have to pay for all the water that we use. I've suggested many times that the Title V flow likely overestimates the amount of water that will actually be utilized on the site. By metering it, we will be contributing whatever our actual use will be. And I think what's most important is with respect to actually the information that DPC confirmed is with respect that even if you were to add the existing water use for the site, even if you were to add in the facility flow per Title V for this facility, you would still have 40% approximately of the safe withdrawal of that Belmont plant to be able to have for future water use. I think that's what's most important as it relates to taxing of the water system. If there's a drought or if there's a water emergency, the camp will be subject to any and all restrictions that any other water customer would be on the site.
Jeremy or Dave, I recall though that in your study, you say that the town should see how that compares to the future needs of development and stuff like that, correct?
There's a lot of different ways that the numbers get presented, and as Brett said, Title V is typically a max day flow, which is typically twice average daily flow. You have a good amount of water and you have a good amount of reserve. I'm not sure that the town has taken a look forward 20 years to make sure that you've accounted for your own use, and that's something that we recommended that you should do. But a lot of the restrictions that have gone on in the past are associated with outdoor watering during the summertime. So in addition to the average days, the max days, you have to take a look at when the water is being used. I think relative to the proposed development, it sounds like what we've heard is that most of the water consumption would be of sanitary nature as opposed to athletic fields and things like that. Obviously, there's water associated with filling pools and things like that, but for the most part, it sounds more traditional in terms of how we would use water on our own homes for sanitary purposes and not huge yards and athletic fields. So I don't know if I answered your question or not, but
you did. Thank you.
These numbers are just, there's a lot of moving parts.
Okay, thank you. Brennan, with regards to that, is each of the 317 sites going to have their own individual? I mean, I believe that's what it says. I just wanted to have it be heard from you. Have their individual sewer and water hookups.
That is currently the plan, yes.
Yes. So that means that an RV that was traveling, say, 400, 500 miles to get here. I'm not sure what the average travel distance is for people coming to Northgate. But if their water tank is low in their RV and their sewage tank is getting full, are they able to pump out their sewage from their RV, their holding tank? It's pump that out and then also as well fill up their water reserve so they can shower while they're in an area that doesn't provide as many amenities as Northgate wants to. So in other words, can they, as they're traveling around, fill up their sewage tank and then literally come to Northgate, dump it and leave there with no sewage in their tanks to bring it back home?
I would defer to Chelsea with respect to the policies and how they allow, in terms of how much they allow people to bring into the facility versus what would be discharged. Obviously, once they're in the site, they're connected to our utilities, they have the right to use those. That is fair.
Okay, so I am not a camper and I do not own one of these campgrounds. When someone hooks up to the sewer, my assumption is that they're not just hooking their toilet and their shower up to it, they're hooking into their storage tank, and then whatever they let out of their storage tank at that time is going to go into the town sewer, and there's really no way to stop that, correct?
That's correct. Yeah, we can't look at where people are at on their holding tanks. I will say people typically, they're coming from either their home or they're coming from a different campground where they had a sewer connection. So it wouldn't make much sense to drive to this location with a full tank, but that's not entirely unheard of.
Right, but if they were coming long distances and they were staying at less expensive campgrounds where they didn't have a sewer hookup, and obviously we're just relying on the capacity of their vehicle, they could potentially just come pump and dump, basically.
They would have to pay for the site, but yes, they could.
Okay, thank you.
And part of the overall sewer design for the site, I will admit, my preference would be to see more of a traditional sewage pump station. We have intentionally, in my opinion, over-designed the sewage holding tank capacity to be in a position to ensure, to address that type of situation, or 4th of July weekend where there may be great use of the homes as well as the camp being close to peak capacity, that we would have the ability to store on site and meter out over hours, off peak hours, the ability to put our sewage into the sewer system at a time that would not conflict with the other users of the sewer system in town. And I think that also goes to understanding that concept, the recommendation of an operation and maintenance system to understand how will the odor control system operate when camp is open versus when it is closed. So again, we've tried to, as a part of this design, provide even more capacity to absorb those peak flows, where again, someone may very well be able to empty their tank when they first come. And to a certain degree, Chelsea, I imagine we'll be able to look at some of their demographics in terms of from their other facilities, how far are they actually traveling? If this is someone who's getting up on a Thursday morning and just hooking up and driving to the site here, there may be some use, but not likely a great deal. So I think, to be honest, that's something we could look further into to get a better understanding of how many people are coming.
Our typical guests are coming from an 1.5 to 2 hour radius from the location. That's drive time.
Who, Jeff? Yeah. Jeff, are you there?
Hi, Jeff from Camper-Maca. Can I jump in for a second, Jeff?
Yes, please do.
So I'm sorry, I had to go answer my doorbell when you guys were talking about the water. So it's my understanding that there's some question about the numbers that were reported in the water usage. So I just want to clarify that the numbers that I provided for the data that was shared with your board represents Camper-Maca's actual usage in calendar year 2018, 19, and the first half of 21. Those numbers were consistent. Population of about 300 people, plus or minus a small amount, that those numbers are entirely accurate and represent our water usage. Of note, that does not include the residential dwelling where our caretaker lives year round, that it represents only our seasonal usage as a summer camp.
And that was approximately 35 gallons per day per camper.
I'm sorry, can you say that again? There's a little echo.
Sorry, Jeff. Was that 35 gallons per day per camper about?
I think it was actually, I'm sorry, I did not actually do the math. I gave the raw data figures. It was almost just shy of 1 million gallons a year. So, you know, you could do the math, or camp operates for approximately just a day over 7 weeks with our campers there. And then we have another 2.5 to 3 weeks of a smaller population of counselors readying the camp for pre-camp. So I would say on average, that would come to about an 8-week period where you would be using that 1 million gallons, just shy of that 1 million gallons for a population of 300 people on average.
Okay, thank you, Jeff.
You're welcome. Hope that's helpful.
We're going to take like one more if someone has a question before we.
Yeah, I'm sorry, just one last one. I have not had a chance to review his data. I'm happy to do so. I am speaking from my own personal experience for another summer camp in the town of Beckett, very similar use to Ramaca, and we're dealing with the Department of Environmental Protection right now. We have administrative consent order to design a upgraded septic system for a groundwater discharge permit because their facility flow is approximately 27,000 gallons per day, and their actual water withdrawal use is approaching 13,000 gallons per day. So they've gone through, they've done the water efficient fixtures. It is very possible that the actual flow, the actual water usage will be significantly less than what that Title V design flow would be. There's two different questions in terms of the actual usage. We pay for the metered use, the connection fee based on Title V flow. Admittedly, that's why we've asked for that additional information to better quantify what that potential fee could be, as that is not a published rate structure that we could evaluate currently.
Right, and obviously it's not a published rate structure because it's never come across the town before.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right, thank you. Last one.
Jeff Einer, just wanted to add that if you guys need those bills or if you'd like to access them from the town water and sewer, they are, I'm sure, some matter of public record. So they're available there and reflect actual usage.
Thank you, Jeff.
Paula Walzig, 303 South Shore Road, 305 South Shore Road. We've been characterized as people who only care about a lake, so I'd like to respond to that. There is a nice team of well-informed, researching, hardworking individuals who have tried to do their homework on this project and ask the questions that we've come up with in response to the homework that we've done. So I just want to clarify that we're not trying to be difficult or just protect our lake. We're looking at environmental issues in general. When this first came forward, skepticism arose with myself and some other people that I spoke with, because it felt as if this was a done deal. Like people had had backroom conversations. They talked about having spoken with the town for many months. And so we were just concerned that the homework wasn't being done. That's how it started. So when we started asking our questions, in a very short time, this moved from this planning board to the zoning board where we believe it belongs, and where obviously the town, excuse me, I'm getting all nervous, where the town thinks it belongs. So with that said, I'm concerned about this continued reference back to the old days with what Hall said. You know, there was a conversation with one of the select board members where he didn't even know that there would be open septic lines here. They thought that there would be honeypots in this facility, and they would be physically collecting sewage in, you know, portable pots. So this one-time connection of 1,600 or 800, whatever, is related to that. It's related to a misunderstanding about how this whole thing works. So I'm concerned that if we didn't think that was the right way to go, why do we keep talking about information from the wrong set of people? That's my question. Thanks.
Well, I obviously, I know this got started off, you know, and, you know, it got started off, I would say, you know, without, I'm not saying the town handled it wrong. The special permit granting authority can really be any branch of the town. And in fact, you know, the select board acts as the special permit granting authority on things such as, you know, NASA solar arrays, marijuana farms, and even like gravel pits. So they are, you know, they had the right to declare themselves as special permit granting authority. However, in review with town council, they decided that it should be passed to the zoning board. So as I assured everybody at the last meeting, that now it is with the zoning board, it's staying with the zoning board. The zoning board is doing its due diligence and is taking this matter seriously. So all I can do is reassure you that the matter is in the zoning board's hands now, and it's being started over. And that we're not referencing the zoning board members, that at least I can speak for, are not relying on Paul's recommendation or past employees' recommendation. We are currently reviewing 700 pages of documentation and are basing our decision based on that 700 plus pages of documentation.
The only thing that I would like to relate to is with respect to the discussions of what we had discussed with Superintendent Hall at the time, was really just to better address the DPC review and just understanding that Mr. Hall had a different opinion on certain elements as to Mr. Prickett, and we're happy to work through those. That's really the intention. And just to make clear what the understanding was prior to the submittal of the special permit, what the rate structure would be. That's the only intention of raising that. In terms of this perception that there was a done deal with town officials, I generally have multiple meetings with whether it's a town planner, conservation agent, whatever it may be. Before I file a garage for a single family home, it has to go before a conservation commission. Most times I'm meeting with the conservation agent. In Pittsfield, they've got a very well-established pre-permitting conference where they will call in the building inspector, the fire inspector, city engineering, whatever it may be, in anticipation and in preparation for an application. So it's very, very commonplace, especially for a project like this, where we would reach out to I'm not doing my job if I don't reach out to the town officials in anticipation of an application. And the purpose for that was really to try and understand what were some of the greatest concerns. And with the application that we submitted with respect to the curb cut, with respect to the way the sewer was designed, we tried to the best of our ability to address the concerns that were raised during that initial discussion. There was no guarantee of a permit or anything to that effect. It was really our job to try and get as much information as we could to make a responsive application to the concerns, at least of the department heads. This process allows the members of the public to share their concerns. It gives us the opportunity to respond to those. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Bob, we're not taking any more tonight. Bob, do we have a date that we're able to have the school again?
No, we asked after, the conversation I had with Joel today, and we haven't gotten a response back. The principal has to approve it, and I wasn't able to reach him today, but the email and questions are in and it's staff note. I expect we'll know tomorrow, and we'll put it out as soon as possible after our review it with each other.
Okay, Attorney Barr, are we there?
Hi, Mr. Chairman. Hi. What did you ask?
So, with light of the new information that was received today and the information that was given tonight and the request for more information, we'd like to suspend this hearing. I feel it's necessary to suspend this hearing until a further date where White Engineering can get their information. We can provide the information that they need. The problem is we don't have a firm date of the next meeting. Do you have any suggestions?
I have two suggestions. So one would be to continue the meeting to the school auditorium, pick a date, whatever would be a convenient date for the members, and hope that the auditorium would be available on that date. And if it's not, then one or two members of the zoning board would appear right there and open the meeting, and without taking any testimony, continue the meeting to a date that had been worked out with the school. So that's a bit of a shot in the dark, if you will. The advantage of that over the other alternative is that the other alternative would be to continue the public hearing right now without having a date certain, and then you'd have to go through the whole publication process, putting it in the local newspaper, posting it and so forth, notifying abutters, so there's an additional expense there. So it's up to you to decide it. I'm thinking, and perhaps Bob Graves has some input on this, but if I were on the board, I would lean to picking that date sometime out. At this point, I guess it would be in January. It's going to work. I mean, you've got the number of folks there who can tell you.
Chair, if I have a point of information, quickly. I agree with Mr. Vaughn about the first option, makes more sense, but will Northgate agree that the clock, because they're not ready tonight to finish, that the clock is not being charged against the zoning board?
There is no clock going on the zoning board right now. The hearing has started, and I've been assured that the hearing can go as long as necessary. And it's not just Northgate, it's us requesting information too. So it is everyone, but Joel, you agree that we're not on the clock here?
Right, that's exactly right. But I'll just give a little 2-minute tutorial, if you will. So when a special permit application is filed, the public hearing opens, and there's no statutory time limit on the length of the public hearing. And what the case law tells us is that the public hearing can't be, let's say, frivolously extended, but clearly here, both sides are needing more time to provide information. And I have no doubt whatsoever that this is a legitimate extension of the public hearing. And then eventually it'll be closed out when everybody is satisfied that they've provided all the information that they needed to provide and so forth. When the public hearing is closed, then the statute says that the board will have 90 days to make a decision. So right now there is no fixed clock running against the hearing.
Yeah, thank you, Joel. Okay, so
Jeff, the date that we requested was the 11th of January, which is Tuesday.
yeah, yeah. Did you just get information on that?
No,
Okay.
that's what we
Is
requested.
that a problem for us?
Yeah, because you have to have,
No, it won't have to be posted in the paper.
oh, it doesn't?
No.
Yeah.
No, are you, my question is, are you out of town that you know of on the 11th
Not
at this
till the
point?
not till the 14th.
What's the
11th?
date again?
January 11th, Tuesday?
I'm good.
Probably okay. I'd have to check my calendar.
At this point, it is 8:26 on December 14th. I'm going to make a motion to suspend this meeting in its current phase to January 11th, 2022, believe it or not, at 6:30 right here in this auditorium.
Second the motion.
Thank you. At this point, the motion has been seconded, and this meeting of the zoning board of appeals is closed and will be reopened on, again, January 11th at 6:30 at the same location. Thank you all very much.
Do you have to vote on that motion? I think you have to vote on that motion. Joel,
We have to vote on that motion, Joel.
Yes, yeah, you definitely want to vote on this, yeah.
Yeah, well, all right, I'm calling the vote on the motion to suspend the meeting.
I vote aye.
Aye.
I vote yes. Yeah, the board voted unanimously to close the meeting. And sorry, not to close the meeting, to suspend the meeting to January 11th, 2022 at 6:30 at this location. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.